Hi, welcome to the Red Booth Show. This episode features Christopher Martin. He's a stand-up comic that's been doing the circuits around Los Angeles for a while and has a great routine and is extremely entertaining. So why don't you tune in and see what it's like to be a comedian in Los Angeles?
For my hat, too sexy for my hat. What you think about that? I'm a model, you know what I mean. And I do my little turn on the catwalk. Yeah, on the catwalk. On the catwalk, yeah, I shake my little touch on the catwalk.
Hi, welcome to the Red Booth. Today's show is with Christopher Martin. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for coming on the show. Chris is a local comedian, and he's been pretty much in all the major comic stand-up places around town. The Laugh Factory, and we go ahead and let him know some of the places.
Comedy Store, Hollywood Improv, Brea Improv, Ontario Improv, Flappers, Meltdown Comics, basically any venue that will take me and I could sneak into, so it's pretty awesome.
That's so cool. I know you've been doing this for a while because I've been sort of tracking your, events, and I've been to your show, and it was really fun and entertaining. So, I think that you're very brave to go out there and do this on a regular basis.
It's so great. And I remember that show you came to. That was at Sardo's in Burbank. It was a Wednesday night, and I know because Tuesday nights they do porn star karaoke, which actually gets way more people than comics can get. It's like we can't compete with that venue. We just can't.
I can't really. So what happens at a porn star karaoke?
Everything you would think of. It is a combination of awesomeness and sadness at the same time. Like it's great songs and daddy issues all night. It's
God.
It's spectacular.
Wow, I'll have to check that out. No, just kidding. How did you first get into doing comedy?
I first started right out of high school. I started to try to get into improv best I could, and I was down in Orange County. I got into an improv theater, and I was instantly hooked. And then from there, I got into sketch comedy, and after a while, just eventually the evolution of where I wanted to go with comedy and being out in LA. Forced myself to do stand-up, and literally went to an open mic, which is where comics go to test new material, try new jokes out, and got up on stage for, I think, what was the longest 3 minutes of my life, because it's hard enough to try to do jokes to just an ordinary audience, but comics is probably the most brutal audience you can ever deal with.
So it was like a lot of comics were there also because they were going to do their thing.
Right, and of course they don't care about you at all. We are very selfish people that only care about our own material, and it's only like, can this guy get out? I need to get my brilliance out there for people to hear. So it was, so once you get that, it's almost like you're forcing yourself to go back up there. Now it's like, man, that wasn't good, but I can do better, and then it just becomes almost like an addiction. At first I was, doing 1 to 2 open mics a week. Then I found myself going to 3,
actually
4.
A lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, actually.
Yeah, 1 and 2 would have been a lot, but then I'm 3, 4 open mics a week, and just anywhere.
Totally getting addicted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Did you have stage fright?
Not necessarily. Like, I think the hardest part, I think, is once you go out there, and if you could get the audience on your side within the first 5 seconds, you're pretty good. But the hardest part is getting that initial laugh from the audience, because if you don't get that initial laugh, it becomes very uncomfortable.
Oh my God. Well, so how do you get into a comedy store? Like, do you just call them up and just be like, hey, I want to be on the stage, and do you have a slot? Or
I really wish it was that easy. I really wish that any entertainment was easy. Like, if you wanted to be in a movie, it's like there's like this store you just go to, and like, I'd like to be in a movie. Like, come right in, action or comedy. It's almost to where you have to just talk to people and know people, and showing up is half the thing. The Comedy Store does a lot of open mics, and then once you do enough of them there's promoters that do shows elsewhere, some at the Comedy Store, some others, and then they'll promote you and get you on other shows. And sometimes they're what's called bringer shows, where you have to bring a certain amount of people with you to even get stage time, which kind of sucks. But I mean, when you're starting out, that's what you have to do. But I think I'm just getting over the bringer hump, which is.
So what was that? Was that rough? Like, how many people do you have to bring to those?
It depends, really, because it's all about the promoters. Some promoters get it. Like, there's a guy I work with, Brian. He's really genuine. He's a comic himself. He knows how tough it is to get people to shows, because your friends can only hear you tell the same jokes so much before they're completely burned out with you. So between 3 and 5 is normal, but I've had other promoters where it's like, can you bring 10 people? Like, no, I cannot.
Wow, that's a lot of people. Well, I think that it's pretty awesome that you go out and do that, and it takes a lot of persistence and perseverance, and I remember when I came and saw you, and then afterwards you were like very much like sort of going over like, okay, I really think that joke worked, and that one wasn't quite so good, and I want to do this one, and like,
right.
It's like a constant process of like seeing how people react, I guess. Right,
and it's a constant evolution of when like you come up with a concept that you think is funny and you try it the first time, or if I may not work with anyone, but when I try something the first time and it doesn't necessarily work, it doesn't mean that it wasn't funny. It just means that maybe it needs to be worked on. And then likewise, you could tell a joke that kills, and I've done a joke that could absolutely just destroy and kill at the Comedy Store, and then it Joe's upstairs coffee restaurant, just nothing, just absolute death, and you just have to learn to just adapt and learn how to roll with it, essentially.
Wow, that's crazy. Like, what do you do with that kind of feedback? That must be so confusing.
It's kind of funny that when people like, especially that are not comedians that come to the show, and they always, that's one of the, I think is kind of a pet peeve with me, is like, oh man, that was a great joke. What about this joke? I'm like, why don't you go up and tell jokes? Like, why are you giving me concepts? Like, I could do, and it's always funny that I think that everyone's like a critic, and they always think that, they can give feedback. And I'm not saying feedback's not a bad thing. Like, feedback is good, but if someone...
But if they're not experienced doing it themselves or whatever, then
Right, or thinking, well, maybe it would work if you did this. Like, maybe it would. Yeah.
You're like, maybe you should go and try that. No.
Maybe you should hit an open mic yourself and see what happens. And bring the tomatoes to throw at your face.
Well, being an artist is definitely... that always happens, I've noticed. Just for anything that you're doing, you're going to get people who aren't doing it themselves, but will give you their own advice, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And there's critics that they come from everywhere. Like, I generally try not to criticize other comics or be bad blood, because everyone, this guy, like, oh, he's, not very funny. It's like, well, he's not very funny. It's just maybe that's not his audience, because there's all different types. There's clean comedy, oddball comedy, dirty, filthy comedy, which I don't do very well. I don't know if some of those jokes I was telling in the makeup room were any indication, but no, I mean, I definitely try to do a balance.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, exactly. No, forget what we were talking about. No, I definitely try to push myself. Like, I remember some shows I try to do a complete clean show and not use any vulgarity, and it's kind of hard because you could feel like, synapses and like, veins popping in your brain, when you're trying to hold back on, things like that, and it's like, I just want to express myself, but I can't because these are 8-year-olds and it's a birthday party. So, you gotta keep it clean when you can.
Do you get a lot of gigs like that? Like, just for events and things? Or?
Yeah, they a lot of the times people contact me. Like, I got to drive out to San Bernardino to do a comic, his mom's 50th birthday party, which it was like, okay, and it was in a backyard, and it was about 100 people, and it was like, of course, some of the other comics on the card, they all knew, and they were all, friends with each other, and it's like, okay, here's this guy we've never seen before. You're up first. Like, all right, here we go. I know no one. I know nothing. This is a backyard, but they're paying me $100, so let's go. So, so it's just, you gotta get up and go out no matter what the venue is and treat everything like it's like the Nokia Theater or, the biggest venue ever. Do the best show you can.
That's really cool. I think that's the thing that, I really admire about artists out here in any of the fields, and especially in stand-up comedy, is just continue to go up and do it, just over and over,
right.
And like, just keep going,
Right, and that's the thing with, I think, a lot of people drop out of comedy, is people think that, oh, I'm going to start telling jokes, and within 3 weeks, I'm going to be making millions, and like, not so much. Like, I really wish I knew the comic who said this, but he was being interviewed, and someone asked him, how do you feel being such an overnight success? And he laid it down to her. He's like, it took me 10 years to become an overnight success. So what you see, like the comics you see now, like, you know, your Kevin Hart's and your Louis C.K.'s, and, you know, they've been
at it for a while.
They've been doing the grind for, you know, years and years and years. And what you're seeing now is like the polished product of years of hard work and dedication.
Yeah, that's what I seem to continuously find out about all of the overnight successes of, you know, it's just, they've been doing it for at least a decade.
Right.
It seems like.
Yeah, so I have about 8 more years before my decade, so still got a while to blossom, so we'll see how it works out.
Well, also, you've done some film too, right? Some video.
Yeah, I've
projects?
done some video, all with my clothes on, which I'm proud of.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a great start, I think, to a career. I just actually finished a web series called Buffington that was put on by the master's class at Cal State, LA.
Wow.
And it's really, really funny. I get to play kind of a dumb-witted cop, which is kind of funny, just completely... they gave me a lot, like they had a script, but then once they saw like kind of my improv, they were like, yeah, you could just kind of go on some tangents. Like I think at one point my character doesn't even carry a gun because for reasons unknown, I'm not allowed to carry a gun for previous incidents, and then just leave it at that. It's like, why aren't you allowed to carry a gun? Like, I'm not allowed to talk about it. You know? Don't want to bring that up. But no, it's really fun. I think comedy acting is, I think, one of the hardest types of acting, because I think making people laugh consistently is definitely tough, and acting for film and stand-up's a little different as well, because stand-up, when you're telling jokes and you're being funny, you're getting immediate feedback from the audience, but when it's on film, the crew, everything has to be silent, so you're not hearing any laughter, so you do something that you think is funny, and the comic in me is kind of doing that. You know, that pan, I'm like, feedback, like, anyone? Yeah. I need it now, you know, like, need approval.
Yeah. Well, you're so used to the audience being there.
Right.
I know, and the crew's not allowed to say or laugh.
I know. They're doing a great job, by the way. You guys are holding it down. Awesome. Professional. Great stuff. And I just started taking classes at Upright Citizens Brigade, which is a improv theater in Los Angeles. And
yeah, those guys are great.
Yeah, it's a really great class, and they teach. I think improv is like, I think definitely something. If you're a stand-up comic, you definitely need to be able to keep on your feet, on your toes, because if you do get that drunk heckler that just decides that, you know, hey, I want to be part of your show now, you got to know how to, you know, how to shut them down, and how to, you know, deal with it where it doesn't become like a knockout, drag out fight, because sometimes hecklers,
that could happen.
Yeah, like one of the scariest shows I actually ever did was at the Rainbow Bar in Hollywood. It was a night, it was just supposed to be just a regular show, and then was dropped in by about 20 Hells Angels bikers.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the most intimidating crowds ever to have played.
Were they just like sitting there with their beards, like, you know, just kind of like...
Yeah, and I imagine just them, you know, with the switchblade in their hand. You better be funny, you know, like. So, but you know, once you started talking about, you know, bikes and cultures, and like, you know, I can't grow facial hair, and they have manly beards, you know, they were like, oh, this guy's all right, you know. So it was after playing in front of that crowd, I don't really think there's a crowd that can intimidate me as much, because I know that crowd probably won't kill me.
That's good.
Yeah,
you made it. You made it through.
Yeah. So I'm not saying they're killers, that, you know, but they're a good group of guys.
They're tough.
Yeah, if they're watching.
Right.
Very tough. I respect all of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know that you don't want to use up your material for stage, but would you like to tell any of your... Would you like to go for it with us on camera here?
Yeah, absolutely. I could do a couple.
Right.
Like I said, my jokes are pretty much just like stories or events like I come across. Sometimes I'm always thinking of just things that we have, and like no one ever gives them like a second thought. Like fantasy football is like extremely popular right now, and everyone loves fantasy football. I myself love fantasy football. I think the name fantasy football is a little misleading though. Because with fantasy, you would think it's a fantasy, right? So I'm actually in the works to make my own fantasy football league, and I'm starting to kind of player out my team. So my quarterback for my
I
fantasy...
know nothing about fantasy football. I just have to confess to you
No.
right
It's
now.
well, fantasy football is essentially where you take actually existing players, and based on how they perform in their games, you get points. But that's not really a fantasy. That's like more sports. So my fantasy team, my quarterback is Han Solo. My halfback is the Dragon Zord from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, because he's a mechanical dragon with a drill bit tail and missile launchers. There's no defense that can stop that, honestly. And then my wide receiver is actually Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, because he's really small.
He can bounce?
Oh, he can bounce. He's got incredible height. And then plus
I can see that.
he's a tiger, so he's feral, you know. So you're gonna tackle him, but like, you know, he's a tiger, and he may bite my face off.
He might.
So that may happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So and then I talk about different things too, like with dating, and there's a lot of stuff that, you know, bleeds truth, and, you know, some stuff has to be, you know, made up, obviously. I actually was in a relationship with a girl that was half black and half Irish, and I knew going into it was going to be a test. Like, it was like, okay, here we go, Irish, and you know, I can deal with this, you know. But it got to the point where she, the Irish part of her would get really drunk, and she would like beat me up. So I tried to run away, but her black part was like really fast and was like able to she was able to like track me down, like, and I couldn't do it. And I remember Shaniqua McGillicuddy, and I'll never, you know, I'll never forget. You know, we did have some good times. We had some really good times, you know, and it was, you know, you never forget them.
I want to hear the accent for Shaniqua McGillicuddy.
Shaniqua McGillicuddy, that would there would be so many letters from the NCAA if that happened. That would be, and that's a football league. I just realized. Isn't that it? NAACP. Was that more like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to try to do that accent, but I think you would get so many letters that it would just it would be awful. It would just I really respect this show too much
to do that?
to lower the standards that much.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it would be really bad, really bad. But yeah, really bad. No, but let me see what else. Yeah, back to the girlfriend, the dating, you know, thing. That's what everyone says is like, you know, online dating and OkCupid, and it's like, how's that going? Like, terrible. It's just not going really well at all.
Are you using one of the dating sites?
I am, and I think I'm using my own pictures, which I think is like
That's the problem.
Yeah, I think
That's
is such the
problem.
problem. And I know I'm not like a terrible looking guy. I'd say I'm, you know, a 6 on the cuff of a 7. I'm gonna say, and I know this because there's actually I found, if you've been in Hollywood, and you probably are aware of stereotype classes. And how they work is maybe I was duped. Maybe this wasn't even a class. Maybe I was being punked. But you go into this room and it's filled with other people, and they just stare at you, and then based on your physical appearance, they tell you what kind of roles you would be good for.
I've never heard of this before.
This is the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced in my life.
Is this for real?
This is 100% real. The way it works is you're in a room, and a teacher and students just look at you, and based on your physical characteristics, they tell you what kind of roles you would be good for. Mm-hmm. So this cute young blonde girl gets up there, and everyone's staring at her and looking at her, and they start shouting out like girl next door, prom queen, you know, love interest, and it's like, yeah, I totally could see her doing those things, like, absolutely. A guy gets up and he's huge and muscular, and everyone's looking at him, and it's like, you know, prison guard, bodybuilder, Dothraki warrior, and it's like Game of Thrones. Yes, that guy is totally Game of Thrones, right? So now I'm like actually getting excited because it's like my turn. So I get up there, and the vial that came from their mouths was a rapist and, you know, psychopath and a Nazi officer, and I'm waiting for like some kind of good implement to come from them, and I'm like, all right, okay, no one, you know, flattered me all at once now, you know, with all these, you know, great roles I could be good for, and it kind of lowered me down a little bit. And then the next week I got a call from Law & Order SVU, so it was
wow.
yeah, definitely.
And were you playing a psychopath?
I was playing a really big psycho. Well, actually, I auditioned for the role of a tall, creepy guy.
Okay.
But they said I was too...
It said tall, creepy guy.
It said tall, creepy guy, and then they called me and they informed me I was too tall.
You were too tall to be
I
the
was too
tall,
tall to be
creepy.
the tall, creepy guy. Apparently, they never said anything about being too
Tall,
creepy.
but not too tall.
No, they said
Tall,
my
creepy.
creepiness was absolutely fine.
Oh, that's
they
good.
they said it was more than they had hoped for
Nice.
the role, but they were like, you need a little more height from you. So I was like, well, okay, well. Yeah, I bid them adieu.
Ah, c'est la vie.
C'est la vie.
Well, that's really cool that you're still going out there and doing auditions and, you know.
I love them. I love going just auditioning. Like, I think if I had to be any type of actor, I just think character actors are like the funnest thing to possibly play because you're literally just playing someone that you never would ever be in your life. And
yeah,
I mean,
like rapist, serial killer. What was the other one? Nazi,
right?
general.
Yeah, couldn't be. I mean, if there's ever a role that has all of them combined, I mean, Oscar winner.
Wouldn't
right
they
here.
all kind of be combined?
Probably.
Like, generally,
I think so. Generally, it would be a combination of the such, but yeah, I mean,
maybe you should just invest in like a uniform and then you know.
Oh yeah,
come
yeah,
out
you
and
know,
that's
yeah.
what
I'm sure once I do, I'll be on the FBI watch list until the day I die. But you know, Nazi uniform. No, it's but I just think that being characters are so fun, and it's just something I normally do anyway. Like in my spare time, I go to car dealerships and test drive Ferraris, playing up like I'm a person with extreme wealth when. Really not, but
You're just totally messing with
No,
them.
I totally love messing with people. I will totally go up and start talking to people in a completely different accent. Like I will be German one day. Or I'll just be like walking down the street and I see a group of people and be like, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm very trying to get to the bus stop that's over on Hollywood Boulevard and I'm so lost right now. Can you please help me with directions of some kind? And then, oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, Hamburg. I'm sorry. Is this too English is hard for me to speak. And I just think it's so fun just to mess with people. I love just seeing reactions from people and then they humor you along, and then the next reaction is when they find out that you were completely messing with them, and it's like, who is this guy, and now why is he running away giggling? It's just like that's my thing. It's what I do. I just love to have fun.
You should totally bring a camera with you.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah,
That'd totally be a good idea.
Yeah.
Total Bruno it.
That'd be awesome.
That would be really cool. Good idea. All right. Well, you'll get credit for that.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah. So you're
special thanks to Kim.
You're producer on that.
Nice. Well, I'm so glad you got to come on the show.
I'm so glad I got to be here. The red booth is so iconic, and actually to be sitting here on it and.
Yeah, what do you think of my little booth?
It's awesome. I love it. I love that you actually. I'm a little upset that you put James Dean's face on my body, but it's cool. It happens. But no, this is great. You got the product placement and everything. This is.
I'm just waiting for Coca-Cola to pay me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So.
Yeah. After all the Cokes I've drank, I think I should get like a little something in return. Isn't it
My dentist actually. I think there should be like an exchange there, like between Coca-Cola and. Never mind.
Right.
Don't put that on there. Okay.
No, it'd be great if dentists were like sponsored, but it's like, well,
sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Yeah, well, here's your toothbrush and here's your Coca-Cola toothpaste. It's like, isn't this just pure sugar and corn syrup? Yep. That's. See you in 2 weeks. And wouldn't that make sense for a dentist though? If he was sponsored by some corporate conglomerate that's like, this toothpaste causes cavities. Like, yes, that's exactly what it does. Bring me the money.
Well, I think that's probably happening, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that when we get into my.
That's very serious stuff.
Yeah, when I get into conspiracy talk, and then you could bring me back on, and I'll.
Really different. You can dress differently.
Yeah, totally. I'll do
dark makeup on.
Trench coat, mustache, all that fun stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll start growing it now. It's about 6 months. I should have something resembles a mustache.
You must be part Indian.
I am. No facial hair.
That's what it is,
yep,
huh?
No facial hair.
How much Indian are you?
Enough to not get in college.
What?
Yeah, enough to where they just stop you from... because there's a certain percentage, if you're Native American, that they will pay for college. Apparently, I did not meet that requirement. No, I'm not enough to get the scholarship.
Not enough to get the scholarship.
Not enough to get the scholarship, as I tried.
Have you ever actually been out to, an Indian reservation to go, see your history?
I would like to, but unfortunately, I just gamble. like, which is just terrible because I mean I know like actually my family, if I remember anything right, comes from Oklahoma, so I believe it's
the Blackfoots.
Something
No,
of that.
I don't want to pretend.
No, and I don't want to pretend like I don't want to insult because I don't really know that much about my heritage, which I really would like to do more. I just found out recently that my surname Martin is actually English, which goes back all the way to the times of Shakespeare, because my brother did one of those things where you go online and pay someone to possibly find your roots.
What if they're just making it
They
all
could
up?
totally be making it up. It's such a scam.
Yeah.
Like how? Because I don't know, so they could totally be just like, oh yeah, you're Russian from Moscow. I'm like, oh really? Well, I go into England and I prounce around and be like, who's this wanker thinking he is? Like just nothing. So yeah, it's a total scam. But so I've got too many freckles to not be Irish. So I don't know. So.
There might have been an Irish lass somewhere in there.
There could have been. It could be the Mac Martin or Mart Mullen. Mick Martin.
Sounds like a McDonald's burger.
Or sounds like he could be a bassist for the Rolling Stones. Mick Martin.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like one of the earlier bassists that got fired, because he couldn't handle his drugs.
The guy that got drunk too much.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't handle his drugs. That was the thing. Is like, they were like, when a band kicks you out for excessive drugs, you have a problem. Like, that's a problem.
Oh goodness.
So I've heard.
Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you?
Absolutely. If you want to find out where I'm going to be playing or performing, you can look at me up on Twitter at CRR Martin, kind of like George R.R. Martin. So I'm trying to get on his back as best as that. Or you can find me on Facebook at Christopher R. Martin, and I post a lot of dates.
You should
and
buy his
showtimes.
domain name and then just sell it. Like
he's violent.
Oh.
He's really violent. I bought his domain. He threatened me with a claymore.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay. And that's our show, folks. Thank you so much for watching Christopher Martin, stand-up comic on
The Red Booth.
I really wanted to put a deck on my house.
The floor was creaking and there were cracks in the wall.
I had them put in walls in my basement.
Well, the whole thing was done on time, on budget, and not a day of work was missed.
Alpha Structural is a top-rate company. I'd recommend them to anybody.
If you live in a hillside home and gravity is pulling you towards the edge of the cliff, I recommend you call Alpha.
It was a real pleasure to work with Alpha.